Going live in three, two, one. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Real Time Talk with Eagle 3D Streaming. My name is Quentin Anderson, and I am the host of today's show. And we also have with us Alex Stevens from Blue Pixel Creates. Thank you very much, Alex, for joining us today. To give a little bit of background on Alex, Alex is the president of Blue Pixel, a cutting edge agency that focuses on content, experiential, and influencer marketing. Their client list includes, just a few small companies like Sony, Best Buy, GEICO, Astra-Zeneca, and many, many others. Alex comes from a content background, having begun his career creating documentaries at the Discovery Channel and other outlets before following his passion into interactive technologies, and then eventually heading into the marketing world over a decade ago. Alex, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Quentin. Good morning. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Yes, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to spend a little bit of time with us today to talk about some of the projects that you have going on. Before we dive into it, just to explain the format for anyone who is new or a first timer, this is a live show. We're in the world of real time, got to keep it live. So please, please, please feel free to ask any questions that you may have during the show. And you can just drop them in the YouTube chat, and then we will direct them to Alex. We are very lucky to have Alex today, and you'll soon realize he is a master at his craft. So please feel free, if you have any questions regarding what we are discussing today, don't hesitate to ask. So Alex, just to dive in, can you expand a little bit more on sort of your background and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, be glad to. I started off as a documentary filmmaker. That was my passion for a long time. I was lucky enough to work at Discovery Channel in the early '90s and started there. And after a little while, Discovery Channel started venturing into new technologies, and I was the head of production for what was at that time called their Advanced Technology Group. And just to tell you how not advanced technology was then, advanced technology at that time included fancy things like HDTV and broadband. And so I started working with the technology teams, having come from a production background. And that's when I really developed a love for the intersection of technology and storytelling. And after a while, I loved that so much, it actually left Discovery Channel to do more things in that passion. I worked in the early days of interactive television, back when you could play along on a dial-up modem with Jeopardy while it was happening in real time. So I did that. And then I worked at Cablevision in New York, the big cable company there, when they launched their digital interactive platform and all kinds of things. And then eventually came back to my first love, which is really creating content, and then eventually into the marketing world, but in a place where we do use the technology in lots of ways to find that interactive corner. Blue Pixel is an agency that lives at the intersection of content, technology, and experiences, and I love that. I love telling stories, and I like marketing a lot, and I like helping brands, but and I like finding cool ways to do it. We've done it together with some pixel streaming work, and it's very interesting to see. You and I were chatting a little bit earlier about how that's starting to intersect with some of the other places that we use technology.
Yeah, and it's always awesome to see how they merge in the intersections that happens when you're combining new and existing technologies together. Why are experiences a an important focus for your organization? Because I know that you mentioned the intersection of technology, content, and experience. What are or how do you generate or create the experiences themselves?
Sure, it's a great question. Live experiences are powerful
Mm.
with people, and there's a for those of you watching who are unfamiliar, there's a whole area of marketing called experiential marketing, which is what we work in, which is the ability to connect with people in a real life, in person way. And that can be as simple as sampling something at Costco, the most basic kind of experiential marketing. If you want to sell the new Ritz cracker, then you give them to people to try. That's experiential marketing. That's an experience that people have with a brand. And it can be as complex as um, enormous things at award shows or at the Super Bowl, or things that hundreds of thousands or millions of people interact with over the course of a tour during the summer, or all kinds of things. But those in-person experiences are powerful, and technology facilitates those being even more wow experiences.
Mm. And do you have any technologies that are sort of the tried and true that your company tends to use to create those experiences, or is it doesn't matter what the tool is, whatever is necessary to get the job done? Or do you have, some
It's a little bit of
favorites?
both. It's a lot of times a client asking us, can we do things? But often it's about putting people into an environment that is associated with a brand or a character or something about that brand or something that's fun and personalized to them. So we've done everything from, you can be in the lineup for Monday Night Football as part of the Madden bus, or um, and simple things that people take for granted today, custom Snapchat filters or other things. But it's also putting you in a place where these days you can do a lot, where you're putting you in a place where you couldn't be before, where you can't be there now because of the pandemic, or because you have the ability now to create these much more immersive virtual environments where it's a personalized thing. And as marketing is interesting, because marketing likes to play on technologies that are new, that people like.
Mm.
So think about things that are large scale immersive, like Travis Scott in Fortnite, that's sponsored by someone, or virtual worlds that people create in video games, or now, as we see with virtual production, virtual worlds that people create in real life, not just that aren't just based inside a computer. And the intersection of those things, and how eventually brands see that that's an effective way to communicate that people like, and that people like to interact with, and people think is cool. And they're always looking for ways of saying, oh, that's a great storytelling technique, that's a great sticky thing, how can I make a cool brand experience out of that? And we help them do that.
Awesome. And I know you just mentioned virtual production. Can you just share a little bit in your own words what exactly virtual production is, and how your company has adopted and used virtual production?
Sure. So virtual production is the notion that you are using a virtual environment as a real life background when you're producing something.
Hmm.
So the old days, or still a lot, but you can think of it as the way that you would have a green screen behind you and a computer would generate that environment after the fact in post production. But these days, by using really high resolution video walls and Unreal Engine, you can actually generate that background and have it move with the cameras in real time in ways that are really impressive. I actually have some shots I can show you of a project we worked on just recently with our friends at Sony that kind of shows that a little bit. So
Sure.
let me
Sure.
share my screen if that works. Let me know when you can see. Sorry about that ringing.
Yep, we can see it.
So here is an example of something we just worked on, and you can see the elements that make up a virtual production rig. You have cameras in the foreground. You have a video wall, a very high resolution. This is a Sony C-LED, which is their highest resolution technology, in the background. And you have a set, and this set is on a turntable, so it's
Mm.
actually rotating. And then rigged on the truss here are sensors. So the set itself and the cameras are being mapped in 3D in real time, and an Unreal Engine is actually changing and controlling that background in real time. And you can change it to be just about anything you build in Unreal. And in these cases, these are real life backgrounds that have been captured at high resolution and put into Unreal Engine. So here's a good example. This is the beach at night in California.
Mm-hmm.
We've lit the set so that it matches that. And then you can see, as you look at it from another angle, that as you look at these monitors, what the cameras are seeing is this set looking exactly as if they were there, which is much easier to do in a soundstage than going to the beach in California and waiting for nighttime and hoping it doesn't rain and all these things. So you have the ability to use to make it very easy, right? This was probably 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Tuesday. This was technically in a hotel ballroom, but I'm able to create a virtual environment that the actors can see in real time. They're not just looking at a green screen. It reacts to the cameras and the sensors and the whole thing in real time. And then as quickly as we want, we can change the lights and we can change the location. And now it's daytime outside. So we can shoot many scenes in a day by using these virtual backgrounds. And what's really interesting about these virtual backgrounds is that they are Unreal Engine backgrounds, very similar to what we would use for pixel streaming. We're using them in a way where they are reacting to a camera. In this case, it's a real life camera, not a virtual camera or a person's point of view in a pixel streaming environment.
Right.
But Unreal is doing this. Virtual production has become very popular. A lot of folks have probably heard that like big shows like The Mandalorian is the kind of the biggest example of a show that really based its production. Now, of course, that was meant to replace outer space and CGI and be able to do that stuff in real time. Right. And an example like this is meant to replace a very straightforward real life shot, but it works the same. Ghostbusters was the same way. Sony produced both of those things, and seeing these environments and just the ability to do different things like here's Rome and to do all that starts creating a world where these interactive digital environments become a ubiquitous part of production and of storytelling. And I'm very curious to see how we and other folks who are working in these spaces will start combining real life virtual production of this nature with pixel streaming of the same environments where you can say, I'm going to create one pervasive environment, one for a 2D streamed or live virtual production world, but also a fully interactive virtual world version of this.
Right. And there are a lot of amazing things to unpack right there. So the first one is the comparison between a physical set and a virtual set. So what are our options? We either ship the entire film crew to Rome and then to a beach and then composite the footage later on, or we recreate those backgrounds in a digital setup and complete the shoot maybe in one day. Or how many days was that?
One day or however long it happens to take, without having to worry about weather, without having to worry about time of day.
Right.
And with some advantages of the actors, or as let's say you're comparing it to a green screen, for example, so if you can either go to Rome,
right,
you can shoot on a green screen, or you can shoot on a virtual set. Shooting on a green screen, the actors are just looking at green. Your lighting is, trickier. Here you have the light of what sunset behind me looks like, and the way that it moves with the camera in real time is really nice and really allows the actors to understand what's going on.
Yeah, and since you're using real-time backgrounds, they're able to update automatically based on whatever the camera is doing, or if you're rotating that turnstile. And is that because you're using the Unreal Engine, and the Unreal Engine is a real-time game engine, and so it's capable of responding to shifts like that in real time? And if we use another technology, I don't know, like Maya or 3ds Max, where it's possible to render in real time, but it doesn't happen as well as at 30 frames or 60 frames a second. So is it sort of one of those things where now we have this technology, Unreal Engine, that enables to have, instead of a green screen, a real-time environment?
Yeah, absolutely. Unreal is designed to do that, right? It's designed to react to a point of view, whether you call it a camera or a player in a game, moving fast, right? Unreal games render at hundreds of frames per second if you put it on a fast enough PC in real life, right? It's meant to, and it's taking the input of a person moving their character and their character's eyes around. So it really is doing exactly the same thing. And over the last few years, certain technologies have advanced. The resolution and capability of the background screen is a huge one, right? Old video walls, they either had the bezels or they just weren't high res enough. Now you can create a very high resolution video wall of any scale behind the behind the actors. And you have very fast computers that can render very high resolution scenes at 30 or 60 frames per second, as you said, regular, which doesn't sound that much by gaming terms, but that's how you shoot movies are 24 frames per second. So and you have cameras that Sony and other people make that are capable of going out and capturing these environments at very high resolution. So you have a very high resolution environment rendered by a very fast computer onto a very high resolution video wall. And then the sensors are good enough to track all the movement in real time to do it. So, technology advances and storytelling gets better. And it's just a matter of putting all these tools together. But it's Unreal is this funny connector that underlies it all. Unreal certainly didn't set out to make production tools. They set out to make awesome video games. But turns out you can do a lot with it.
And so what was the frame rate of that shoot? Was it 24?
24. We shot 24. Most of the time you're going to shoot 24. Yeah. It's the cinematic frame rate. You actually want all the things you don't want, like you want a little bit of, they call it judder, a little bit of that frame rate interpolation and stuff makes things look like movies, because that's how people have experienced movies for a long time. And so you catch a break there where you're not trying to render stuff super fast. You're just you are super resolute, but not necessarily at a very, very high frame rate.
Amazing. Yep. And since we're using the game engine, the background and the entire shoot itself can be captured and displayed live, which kind of opens up ideas, and some things that we've kind of worked on together is the pixel streaming component. And so do you, now that we have, this, virtual production shoot, do you imagine any ways that we could maybe take that as a starting point and then apply pixel streaming to create, I don't know, maybe something we've never seen before? Or, I mean, you've probably seen everything at this point, but, maybe do you see any cool use cases coming out of that?
Sure. I mean, I think, you can create these beautiful environments, and that for a virtual production use case are there to look great behind someone. Fundamentally, that's what they do. They look great. They allow for easy production and for things to look better maybe than you could have afforded to make them look, because you couldn't travel there or do other things. In pixel streaming, you can take the same environment. So one, that's great because you can reuse elements, and everybody loves to reuse elements because it saves money. But you can make it into an interactive environment. Mm-hmm. So now I can do more with it, especially for brands. So if I have a presentation of something, a new product, let's say if I have a presentation of a new product, I can have let's say I'm Mercedes. I can have my CEO in Germany on a virtual set or a virtual production set talking about whatever the new car is, and it can be behind him, and maybe the car is there in real life in front of him, and maybe the car is what's on the turntable. Mm-hmm. And that's great, and it's going to look fantastic in a virtual environment. I can have him be anywhere. I can be in outer space, or he can be at headquarters in Germany. Mm-hmm. Think about the Apple presentations, very similar these days, where they're using these large-scale pre-recorded environments. But for pixel streaming, I can take that same environment where you just saw whoever the CEO of Mercedes is, and I can have a virtual car there. And that virtual car in the pixel streaming environment is something that people can interact with. They can walk up to it. They can walk around it. They can open the doors. They can go inside. They can see it. And so now I have a consistent experience. It's visually consistent. One is linear and one is interactive, but it's all part of the same takeaway. And that's great. Brands and people love that. It's like, oh, I've made this one thing. Yeah. And there's lots of that. And that, I mean, I love the interactivity of pixel streaming. I love the video game aspects, of it, where I can move through space fast, and I can see, we work with Sony. Sony makes cameras, right? So I could put a camera into that environment. Maybe it would be a new camera, or they make the Xperia phones. But in the pixel streaming environment, I can make it be 10 feet tall so that you can see every detail of it. And I can do that, right? In the real world, I can show you a camera, I can show you holding a phone, or the CEO holding a phone, or I can make it big on the screen behind him. But in pixel streaming, I can float that in space so you can really see every detail of how how the new back looks, or you can fly inside and see the circuitry, all the neat things that aren't real life that you can do in a fully virtual environment.
Yeah, and that's the exciting thing for me, because the way I picture it is, picture us watching a Mercedes-Benz commercial, and maybe there's a car in the center and a person giving a presentation, and it feels like a commercial. It's just one plane we're watching through a single camera, and then I decide to take that camera and fly into the car and take a look at the leather
Yeah,
interior, and then I decide to change the leather interior from black to brown, and
yeah,
I'm doing
absolutely.
this,
Yeah.
and then I can take a look and I can see the presenter, and then I can fly and check out the front, the hood, the back, and that's sort of where I think the power or a very cool application could be, where it's sort of this, I'll call it 2D experience, and then we kind of take over the camera and fly around the space as we wish, um, for an
Yeah,
immersive experience.
absolutely. I 100% agree. And then again, like the ability to have that be part of both parts of that being part of the same Unreal environment initially is really cool. And eventually, I hope, and I don't know how this will happen, but I hope that you can be doing those things simultaneously, right? So
Mhm.
instead of keying with using green screen, putting someone into a virtual environment, like how can I have them be appearing in the virtual production? So if you're looking at it over here, you're looking at the virtual production, and if you're doing it over here, you're looking at the pixel stream all exactly at the same time, and you can do all of the things we were just talking about simultaneously. So if I don't want to listen to the guy, I can come over, even though it's live, I can come over here and fly through the car or do whatever. And it's you can hear that I get excited about where these technologies going, like how can we use them to do more and better and more fun things. And it's fun, it is fun to see people's eyes light up when they realize what's going on and how you can create these great environments. In many ways, I would say another modern analogy to these is VR and AR.
Mm.
Again, using digital elements that put you where you're not. That's a real thing, and it's a different kind of interactivity, and it has its pluses and its minuses and its places and its not places. But again, the notion of I'm creating digital worlds that I'm either bringing something that exists to here, or I'm creating something that doesn't exist at all, but I can be part of that is, I think, becoming a pervasive thing. And I think pixel streaming can be a part of that. The other thing I'll say real quick about pixel streaming
Mhm.
that I like, take some of my water, sorry,
Yeah.
about pixel streaming that I like is the ability to do very high quality, very high resolution things in a
Mhm.
way that you, as of yet, can't really do in a browser based environment like WebGL or something like that, like where you're really able to do stuff that looks amazing. Filmmakers expect things that look amazing. So, if you're watching The Mandalorian, it's got to be really amazing. It's got to look like Star Wars.
Mm.
And if you're launching a new Mercedes, that Mercedes has to look amazing. Like it's not a GTA Mercedes or like it's like I'm trying to show you this brand new car really has to look great. And that's something that Unreal and pixel streaming really, really do well, is the ability to, if you know what you're doing and you pick your spots right, you can make things that really look great.
So here's maybe the $1 million question or I'm very excited to ask you, is when would these type of experiences really be appropriate for an audience? Because I know that you do a lot of experiential marketing. Do you ever see TV becoming this interactive? Or because sometimes when I watch TV, I just want to sit there and I want to watch TV, so I do you think that there are maybe situations where this level of interactivity would be better adopted by users versus other?
It's really funny, right? I worked in interactivity in the year 2000,
Yeah.
where it was like the best we could do is you can answer along with Jeopardy. Um, I think interactivity, it's really interesting because I love the concept of interactive television, and how it's grown to be different is really interesting to me. And I think that kind of interactive entertainment really exists more in the video game world now. And
Mm.
I think, although metaverse is a tricky concept and is probably even even more further down the line, but I think what you are seeing in metaverse-ish video game environments of people like the Fortnite concerts and some of the other things, I think that is the next step of like, where are you going to see these things start to happen? You'll see, I think, interactive entertainment experiences more likely to be in again, pixel streaming-ish worlds, video game-ish worlds, and there will be a kind of a different focus on how do you build those worlds to be genuinely entertaining and cool and interactive on a mass scale in a way that's been a little different. I think time has proven, because I think many of us believe that interactive television would take over the world 20 years ago. I think time has proven that people want to watch a show. I watched House of the Dragon yesterday. I'm like, I want to watch House of the Dragon. Like,
Yeah.
I don't need to fly the dragon right now. I want to fly the dragon over here,
Yes.
but there's always going to be a place. But I do think commerce and some other things will drive some of this first. Will, that ability to experience certain things in a way that has value to a brand will drive some of this.
Yeah, and like you said, this is just the beginning, and then we're also thinking about AR and VR and lots of different applications where we're essentially augmenting some sort of environment with additional information and options for interactivity.
Yeah.
Do you have any projects on the horizon or technologies or ideas that you're particularly interested or excited about?
I am actually. I have to say, I'm pretty excited about how virtual production and pixel streaming crossover. We've seen as the pandemic is fading to the point where real life events can happen again. We do a lot of real life events over the past several years. That has gone away entirely and is now coming back a lot. So this world of people are still going to want to have a streaming component to their events because they realize that they can reach so many more people, even from huge events like CES, the largest trade show in the world. They still want a virtual component. So how can technologies like virtual production, like pixel streaming, and I think this is a very near future thing. I mean, we're talking like now, this year, next year, CES in January. Like, how are these environments going to work together to create really good hybrid experiences for that kind of stuff? And that's certainly more of a commerce play than a mass entertainment play, but I think a significant one, and I think a place that will drive innovation in that regard. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see not just what Sony, but what lots of other people do for CES this year, just in a few months.
Yeah, and we've even started to see people doing text or speech to text conversions. So I can say something into a microphone, and then it's sent to an Unreal Engine, and then it's received by AI, and then it does something.
Yeah.
So maybe we can
Right, and you throw that on top of like Midjourney or these other AI image
Oh,
generators and things like that, with that where you're seeing dynamic environments created in real time based on those kinds of things. Like, it is crazy. It is
what
crazy.
what do you think about Midjourney?
Midjourney is super interesting. In a world, we work a lot with photographers, and this world of I can generate anything I talk about, I think is very tough for the stock photo world, because I think, like, I've seen tons of people. I have friends who are very forward, way more forward thinking than me in technology, and who are like, every deck I make, every pitch, I'm just mid-journeying up all my slides because I can make exactly what I want. And it's like, rather than photoshopping two different stock photos together or putting one in and being like, well, imagine that a cat was walking through this. It's like, no, it's like a cat on a fence at midnight with a dog chasing it. And you're like, oh my God, that's that. And how fast it's advancing is the most amazing thing to me. I mean, it's crazy.
Oh no, and I keep telling my team, you need to learn Midjourney. You need to learn Midjourney. But I know we're already kind of coming up against our half hour. Alex, thank you so much for taking the time. Any final closing remarks, thoughts, ideas to share with the?
No, I would say, I encourage people to be. Virtual production is a really fun space. There's a lot of really fun things on YouTube you can find and see about it. McDonald's has a really good video they did of a commercial they did in virtual production. But as always, encouraging people just to continue to think about how you can push the technology. Now you've got me thinking about Midjourney. I'm like, okay, wait a minute, how are we going to work Midjourney into this?
Mm-hmm.
Or
Yep.
Stable Diffusion or some of the other ones. So
Yeah. Stable diffusion, Dolly's another one. But yeah,
Yeah,
I can't wait to see what the future holds. Alex, thank you so much for stopping by and for pushing technology as much as you do. I'm Quentin Anderson. This is Real Time Talk with Eagle 3D Streaming, and we will catch you on the next episode. Alex, thanks again for stopping by.
my pleasure. Thanks.